Hello, my name's Taylor and I thought today we could talk about my medical transition. I'm a trans man from the UK. This means that I have access to the NHS. My healthcare is free and I am forever grateful for the NHS and for everything that they do. I think it's amazing and I never take it for granted. And without them, I don't think I could medically transition. It's all too expensive. And although this is true, it does mean that the waiting lists for gender-affirming care like hormones or surgeries is quite long. The average time for your first appointment is a minimum of 2 years, and it's incredibly difficult being trans, especially if you have dysphoria, and just everyday life is incredibly difficult when you're in this limbo and you're waiting and it just feels like nothing's moving and it's all hopeless. I do know many people do talk about this, but unfortunately my waiting times have been even longer, and I'm not telling this to discourage people or anything like that, but I do think it's important to note that people do fall through the net and have to wait a longer time. My first referral was done through the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or CAMS as it's known in the UK, which is a place that you go for therapy. My therapy had nothing to do with me being trans, but it all happened around the same sort of time. So I came out to my therapist and we went through all the forms together to send off to the gender clinic. At the time it was for the Tavistock because I was under the age of 18. This was in 2015, so lots of years ago now. And I waited and I waited. My doctors were CC'd in to the referral, so everyone was kept in the loop. And they got back to me about a year and a half later, and in one short phone call, a lady was like, "I'm sorry, you're approaching your 18th birthday, so you no longer fall under the care for adolescents. You'll be an adult soon, so unfortunately you'll have to be re-referred from your doctor." And it hit me like a ton of bricks, really. I was incredibly excited to have the call because I thought, finally stuff's happening and I'll be able to medically transition soon and it will all be okay. But it was just bad news, really. So I felt a bit defeated for a while, and my mental health generally was really bad at the time as well. And it was a shitstorm basically. But I picked myself up with the help of my my loved ones, and I went back to the doctors and said, "Can you refer me? I'm a trans man and I want to medically transition. Can you refer me to the adult clinic?" And she did, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I was worried, because most doctors surprisingly don't know anything about trans people. So if you are going to your doctors to be referred, because you do have to, that's like the first step, you have to go to your doctors to be referred to the gender clinic. Go there with all the information you can. You need to know what you want and how to get it, because it is very common that your doctors just won't know about trans people or trans issues. They're not trained in it, which is incredibly dumb. But be prepared when you go to for them to not know much. So I got referred, and I waited and I waited, and 2 years went by and I heard nothing. And I kept going back to my doctors and I kept being like, have you heard anything? Am I on the waiting list yet? And I feel like the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and it all just kept looping round and round. So it's 2021 now, and I've only just 6 years later, after my original referral in 2015, I've only just had my first appointment with Dr. Gran at the gender clinic. It was done over Zoom because of coronavirus, which it helped me a lot. As I mentioned before, I suffer with incredibly bad anxiety, and don't get me wrong, it was nerve-wracking, but I highly recommend that you do this too. I prepared lots of notes for myself because I knew she'd be asking about dysphoria and about early signs and stuff like that, so I had it all written down. Dr. Gran was really lovely, which helped. So basically, me having my appointment over Zoom made it a lot easier for me to emotionally digest and process. I was also able to physically speak, which is something I struggle with in appointment type situations, partly because of my voice dysphoria and also because of my anxiety. I think there was combinations of reasons to why I was able to speak, and I think it's because it was at my house, so I felt more comfortable. My partner was with me, so their support helped. I was able to mentally prepare because they told me when the appointment was going to be and how it was going to happen weeks in advance, so I could emotionally prepare for it. I could also physically prepare for it by writing the notes down, so that way if I didn't know what to say or if I felt particularly overwhelmed for whatever reason, I could look at my notes and that helped me stay on track. And also, I've been thinking about the moment of talking with the gender clinic for years and years. So it kind of felt like a long time coming, really, I think. And there was two main things Dr. Gran wanted me to do before she could prescribe me testosterone. She wanted to know the contact details of my mental health professionals so they can liaison properly, because when you start hormones, you effectively have another puberty, and we all know how fun puberty is. Lots of hormones and change, and it's important that your mental health professionals and the clinic can support you properly. So I made sure she had all those details and everything. And the second thing that she needed was my blood tests done. I'm going to put a slight trigger warning for menstruation here because it's important to add this, but if you want to skip that, then I'll put a timestamp. But it is important, and I don't think many people talk about it. Is that when you have your blood tests done for the clinic, it needs to be on days 2 to 6 of your monthly cycle, because they need to know the peak of your hormones so they can adjust the testosterone, in my case, accordingly. I'd not heard many people talk about that, and my monthly cycle is quite irregular, so I had to wait for that. But it all went okay. I made the doctor's appointment, I went there and had it all done and everything. I'd also say make sure you have the email address and everything that they need the results sent to, so your doctors know where to send it, obviously, because you don't want to miss communication there when you're so close to having it all sorted and sent off. So now it's the 2nd of June, happy Pride Month, and the saga for hormones continues. The clips you've just seen were from a few months ago. There was a couple of bumps in the road, some things that I didn't account for, so I promised I'd include the good and the bad of transition. So I'm just going to run through now what's happened in that time. On the 26th of April, I got my first lot of results back from my blood tests, the one that I'm referencing in the videos you've just seen. And there were a couple of the results that were quite high and caused quite a bit of concern with the endo team. So they requested that I have my bloods done again. Luckily, it all lined up with my cycle and I was able to go relatively quickly to have the results, to have the test done. So that's good, that was in my favour. And on the 20th of May, so just under a month later, they got my results, and it turns out that I have polycystic ovaries. And it's something that I kind of had an inkling that I had. I'm not really too clued up on what it means long term having polycystic ovaries, but I do know that it can affect your fertility. But I'm feeling okay about it. Having biological children is something that I've never really pictured in my future. If I ever were to have children, I think that I'd adopt them or foster them. Having biological children it's not something really that's ever bothered me, or something that I've sat down and thought about it quite a lot over the years. But yeah, I'm feeling okay about the diagnosis of polycystic ovaries. There was a few months in between waiting for my results where I was quite down and anxious, because I was worried that if I did have polycystic ovaries, which I now know I do, I was worried that it would impact me being able to start T. But luckily, the endo team has reassured me that it won't affect my hormone treatment, and that everything's still okay to go ahead and have hormones, have testosterone, which is great. Because as I said, I was very worried for a few weeks that after all this time it would be something that I wouldn't physically be allowed to do. But yeah, all is well. I have a doctor's appointment very soon where we're going to talk through polycystic ovaries and what it means and everything, and how it affects me in the long term. So I think it's always good to have your mind open to the possibility that things might not be as straightforward as you think they might be when you start pursuing medical transition, if it's something that you feel is right for you. Obviously there are cases where it does happen and people aren't able to start hormones for whatever reason. And I think, you have to allow yourself to process that and think through it, the worst case scenario, because obviously it does happen sometimes. And it's something to keep in mind, I think. So the road is still, my goal at the end is still testosterone and top surgery, but the way I get there might be a little bit different, which I think is another important reason to document it, because there might be other people like me that have polycystic ovaries and that are worried about it, or that find out that they have polycystic ovaries or something like that in the process of transitioning. On the 26th of May, I got an email from Dr. Gran, basically summarising all the appointments that we've had and all the steps that we've taken, that I've taken. And I have a Zoom appointment with the endocrinology team on Monday, the 7th of June. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'll find out more about when I'll be able to start testosterone and in what form it's going to be. So hopefully I'm going to be updating you very soon with good news, fingers crossed, because I feel like I am very, very close to my goal, to my first goal of starting testosterone. And that's about it for now. So take it away, future me, hopefully with good news.